The US-Mexico border is more than 3,000 kilometres long, passing through harsh, desolate terrain. More than 1 million illegal immigrants try to cross this border each year. Hundreds die in the attempt. The US Border Patrol catches many of them, swooping on fugitives like these. But hundreds of thousands evade capture and disappear into the United States.
3 years after September 11th, our borders are still wide open. We have the criminal element that rules our border. We have anarchy on our border. We have out-of-control illegal immigration and the greatest threat to our national security.
The Minutemen say they'll do what their government won't: shut the border. But beyond these hills lies a human wave of migrants, every bit as determined to find a better life in America, prepared to do the jobs Americans don't want, for wages Americans won't take.
People migrate because of sheer economic desperation. It is not something that they take lightly. It is not something we take joy in seeing, as we see people who die and suffer crossing into this country.
Tucson, Arizona, an apt headquarters for the Minutemen. Amid echoes of the Wild West, they're making their own stand by the OK Corral, a most unlikely band of gunslingers.
Just watch. That is your whole job. You don't speak to them, you don't give them water, you don't give them anything at all. You just call the Border Patrol, and if they get up and go by you, there's no comment. You don't say anything to them. You let them go, the Border Patrol gets there, you point out which way they went.
Most of the people who responded are senior citizens, responsible people their entire lives, retired law enforcement officers, retired military veterans.
They're all paying attention right now, and they know that we're a force to be reckoned with, so...
The Minutemen Project is the brainchild of two men. Chris Simcox, owner of a local paper in Tombstone, who came here after the terrorist attacks of September the 11th. That's when he began this crusade to shut the border, founding his group Civil Homeland Defense.
This is about a racist agenda in some way. No, this is about national security and protecting our neighbors and our private property rights, stopping the criminals and the drug dealers and the terrorists.
Shot Heist, Jim. Good. How's it going?
The other is Californian Jim Gilchrist, a decorated Vietnam veteran turned journalist, turned tax accountant, turned political activist.
Okay, gee, I already have that made, but I can't...
It was his idea to launch the Minuteman Project as a recruitment drive, taking their name from a fiercely patriotic 18th century civilian militia who fought the British during the American Revolution.
After 40 years of this onslaught, we are all tired, and we felt the only way to get the tension was to actually enforce the border laws ourselves by coming down here, draw national attention.
It started as a month-long call to arms in April. They came from everywhere, a modern-day posse on deck chairs, taking up watch on a 37-kilometre stretch of border in the San Pedro Valley, an area rife with trails used by so-called coyotes, people smugglers who ply their trade across the border. The Minutemen began stopping illegal crossings and soon got their national attention.
People from California, Oregon, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, Massachusetts, as many as 19 different states. And yes, there were locals there too.
On day 2, these volunteers found 5 illegal aliens hiding under a cement culvert 3 miles from the border. They called the Border Patrol and began to shoot this video. The Border Patrol arrived and took the 5 men away. It's exactly how the Minutemen Project is intended to work.
But not all of it was good.
As the Minutemen organized citizen border patrols, protesters gathered outside.
And you have to confront racism in order to stop it.
The concern that any encounter between the Minutemen and opponents could escalate into a confrontation.
Ed, these two young men do not have cards, but they're okay.
Well, that's good. I won't have to shoot you.
But the Minutemen confounded their critics.
He's going to pull a double. Tomorrow he's going to work your shift. But
Even as President George W. Bush labelled them vigilantes, polls showed strong support among Americans for what was at least a symbolic effort to secure the border.
Illegal aliens trash our countryside, destroy the environment. I mean, literally acres and acres of trash, clothing and backpacks, identifications, everything.
Chris Simcox describes this as a mission, and himself as the leader Americans have long needed. His demands are clear.
We want nothing short of U.S. military presence on our border. Then, I want a 2-year moratorium on any immigration into this country from Mexico. There are plenty of workers in this country. They're standing on street corners everywhere, unemployed.
From the humble office of his newspaper, The Tumbleweed, he spoke of facing death threats from both sides of the border and of his fears for the safety of his 2 children.
I have had their last names changed to protect their identities so that there's no connection between us.
And you personally?
And I personally have to wear a bulletproof vest from the time I walk out my door in the morning until I go home at night. It was so well advertised.
Soon after the Minuteman project began, he polished up his image. Opponents say he also hid his more extreme, racist, anti-immigration views to make his message palatable to Middle America, a claim he strongly denies.
They're trying to behave in front of the cameras, but if you dig a little deeper, there's vast amounts of ignorance and a lot of racism behind many of these individuals.
Cross-border volleyball. Human rights groups countered with their own month-long protest with events like this, aimed at making light of the border tension. Long-time immigration advocate Isabel Garcia claims the Minutemen are just the latest version of racist groups who've tried to militarise the border in the past.
We're scared of vigilantes literally attacking people at gunpoint, which they have. They want to stop to all immigration. And they don't know that they're going to cut off their nose to spite their face because they too depend on the undocumented labor force.
But the Minutemen are not so readily pigeonholed.
I know there's been a lot of very left-wing press that we're all a bunch of redneck gun-toting idiots out here going to shoot people. That's not happening. It hasn't happened. It's not going to happen.
Retired aluminum industry executive Ed Whitbread says people are angry their government is spending billions of dollars on a war in Iraq but won't secure its own southern border.
The main impetus is terrorism and the fact that it is so easy for anybody to walk across this border with anything that they can carry.
Well, it's an example of a trail the illegals will use. This is where an agent will cut for sign, of course. Cutting for sign means the agent is looking for something out of the ordinary.
The U.S. border is under assault, and the statistics are staggering.
As far as arrests, Tucson sector agents arrested 491,771 people last year. This fiscal year thus far, we've arrested more than 17,000 illegal aliens with criminal histories. So we're on pace to pretty much double last year's number as well.
But Agent Charles Griffin says they don't need the Minutemen.
Well, it's not a project that's desired. These people are untrained civilians trying to perform law enforcement functions, potentially, putting themselves in a situation that could be violent. DUI in Chicago, probably not.
Every day, the detention centres along this border fill with illegal aliens. Most are Mexican, but they come from all over Latin America.
Very effective at night as well. The infrared is a wonderful tool.
It's become a high-tech game of cat and mouse. But for all the latest technology, the surge of immigrants has not been slowed. Large groups have been caught in the middle of the desert, dozens at a time.
129, now it's going down, it's coming down. This is regular here that shows.
Many are found dehydrated and lost, abandoned by their coyotes.
You can't physically carry enough water to make it through the desert in a safe manner. And so coyotes will tell them that the journey is only 6 to 8 hours to get to a place where they're going to get picked up or to their destination, when in reality it can be 4, 5, 6 days worth of walking.
They face violence at the hands of the smugglers. Some will be kidnapped and held hostage until their families send money or be killed.
There's rapes, there's murders, there's physical assaults.
Each year, around 300 people die, pushed by the heightened border security to try ever more desperate paths. In this night surveillance video released just days ago, 4 Mexican men tried a risky crossing over a dam in Texas. Border Patrol agents were waiting on the other side, but as they reached for help, the men slipped, one by one falling to their deaths. So commonplace are the captures. We spot one on the side of the road in broad daylight. And what do they do when they catch them? Let them go. Within hours of being caught, they'll be processed, and if there are no outstanding warrants, they'll be dropped off at the border like this, where many simply wait for another chance to cross. The sheer numbers make it impossible for the system to do anything more. The truth is, there are drug runners and other criminals crossing this border. There may be terrorists too. But the vast majority are impoverished Mexicans looking for work, drawn by employers in the US only too willing to hire cheap labour. More than 10 million illegal immigrants live and work in the US today. And this is why they come. Mexican President Vicente Fox has failed to provide the economic miracle he promised his people. Poverty is widespread, and the gap between rich and poor is a chasm.
Porque yo junto botes piensan que soy un cualquiera, es que no puedo estar de oques, porque mi sangre se altera.
This is Altar, a small town about 100 kilometres from the border with the United States. It's come to serve one main purpose. It's become a staging point for the tens of thousands of Mexicans and other Hispanics preparing to make the illegal border crossing into the US. The town square is full of men who've come from around the country to meet their coyotes, making a last phone call home before they go. Shops sell the goods they'll need, backpacks, shoes, and the clothes to help them blend in on the other side. Vans openly line the street, advertising trips to the border. And, as if on cue, they pull out in convoy.
Siempre ha ido en crecimiento. Estaban llegando de 1,800, de 1,500 a 1,800 diarios. Migrantes entre hombres, mujeres, niños. Cuando yo llegué en el 1999 a esta comunidad, llegaban 300 personas diarias. Entonces ha tenido un incremento pues muy considerable. Y esto es como un reflejo, un termómetro de la situación y la realidad que existe en nuestro país.
Father René Castañeda Castro is a Catholic priest who runs a migrant shelter in Altar. Outside, he has crosses marking the numbers of desert deaths in each US state and a wall memorializing the dead.
Muchos de ellos dicen, a pesar, Padre, de esta situación de riesgo, yo no me quiero quedar con los brazos cruzados, prefiero arriesgar mi vida porque allá me esperan mis hijos, mi familia, mi esposa, y tienen la esperanza de que yo les lleve un poco de dinero para que se traduzca en alimento, en vestido, en protección y seguridad para su familia.
The dark truth is, illegal migration works to the advantage of both countries. Without the cheap labour, construction, agriculture and service businesses in the US would collapse. For the Mexican government, these people are its most lucrative export, sending back millions of dollars in earnings to their families and fueling a struggling economy. So your priority is not to police the border?
No, and let me tell you that according to the Mexican Constitution guarantees the freedom of transit within the boundaries of Mexico. So it would be unconstitutional to try to detain them.
But doesn't that make life very difficult for your ally and neighbour, the United States?
Well, what can I tell you? There's this reality of migration all over the world, and Mexico and the United States do not escape from this fact of life.
Tonight at the shelter, a young family is preparing to make their first crossing. Guatemalans Armando Carrillo Domingo is 23, his wife Veronica is 20, their son Harold is 2. Despite the risks, they're determined to take their chances.
Entonces le pedimos a Dios que no nos hiciera nada malo, pues. Entonces, gracias a Dios, no nos pasó nada malo.
The family has gone heavily into debt to pay their coyote, nearly $3,500.
Primero vamos a hacer es trabajar, cancelar todas las deudas, cancelando todo esto, entonces ya empezaríamos ya a luchar por nosotros también.
This is the face of a coyote. For 20 years, Sergio Isidro Medrano smuggled people through the desert to pay for a rampant drug habit.
En aquel entonces, yo fui aprendido 49 veces por labor de patrón. Fui aprendido por ellos y nunca supieron mi nombre. Todo el tiempo les daba otro nombre.
His habit eventually ruined him, and he checked into a drug rehabilitation centre. The human rights group No More Debts discovered him at the centre and recruited him to help migrants trying to cross. The group sets up camps near the border, taking food and water to those in the desert in a bid to stop the fatalities.
Yo he ayudado a 3,850 inmigrantes en este año. He dado 16,000 galones de agua. ¿Sí? He transportado a la frontera a mucha gente que me he encontrado en el desierto.
Now, with a newfound belief in God and the skills he once used to exploit migrants, Sergio has become a not-for-profit coyote. Hola. And there in the desert, we find a group of young men waiting for their chance to bolt to freedom.
Estamos escondidos, sí, protegiéndonos del sol. Ahorita ya nos íbamos a ir, pero no que baje tanto. Hacer algo en la vida. Y para levantar a mi familia, para que no estén viviendo como estamos viviendo.
Among them, one of the men we filmed being caught just days ago. As determined as the Minutemen are on the other side to stop them, there are Mexicans and Americans here just as determined to help the migrants make it.
A 1,5 kilómetros de ahí, y yo no sé por qué los hombres minutos o los Minutemen, esos que dicen, ¿verdad? Tienen que venir a pisotear los derechos de nuestra gente, de nuestra raza. Toda la gente que va para Estados Unidos va a trabajar, va a buscar una mejor vida. ¿Verdad? Van a trabajar y yo pienso que Estados Unidos sin mexicanos pues no funcionaría.
They have an ally in the highest of offices. President Bush, for one, knows the US needs the Mexican immigrants.
We should not be content with laws that punish hardworking people who want only to provide for their families and deny businesses willing workers and invite chaos at our border. It is time for an immigration policy that permits temporary guest workers to fill jobs Americans will not take.
It would drastically thin down the number of illegal border crossings and let Border Patrol focus on criminals and would-be terrorists. But the president is facing strong opposition from hardliners in his own Republican Party.
I think we all need to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
So intense is the growing anti-immigration sentiment in this country, Republicans are nervous at being seen as soft on illegal immigration. Getting an immigration overhaul through Congress may prove impossible. And in the meantime, nothing will change.
This could not have been done without all of you. We did this together. We the people. Thank you. Now, Bill.
The Minutemen succeeded beyond expectations. There were no incidents of violence, and they've recruited 15,000 more volunteers for future projects, expanding the scheme beyond Arizona.
Say shit. Shit.
But even if it were feasible to station them along the entire border, they could not stop the immigrants.
Gabriel Arturo Rubacala Feliz. Presente!
Every week, the group Humane Borders has a vigil for the migrants found dead in the desert. Each cross bears one name. It shows that whatever the risks, they will come, as long as there's poverty in Mexico, jobs in the US, and inaction by both governments.